Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. It's interactive as always. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so you can send them to us via WhatsApp 0809 440 You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live as well up on our YouTube channel, so you can catch that live stream. It's Smooth981. Our analysts are in. Good morning, Mr. C. Welcome.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Lagos.
And welcome, Gbubemi. Yeah, I'll let you catch your breath. I'll give you a few seconds to catch your breath. Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Awesome. All right. As always, again, 0809 440 That is the WhatsApp number. You can also tweet at Smooth981. We're starting off with the Vanguard. To mark this year's International Day of Education, UNICEF has stressed the need for concerted efforts to enhance school safety in Nigeria. And this one is coming from Vanguard.
Okay, thank you very much, Zibby. So, yesterday was the International Day of Education, and as expected, UNICEF marked the day in Nigeria, and there was a press statement that was released. Now, the press statement touched on a number of things, and first off on the list was the fact that significant progress had been made in providing access to 7.2 million Nigerian children affected by the various conflicts within Nigeria, who can be found in internally displaced person camps spread across the country. UNICEF then went further to acknowledge the fact that even though Nigeria had endorsed the minimum standards for safe schools, only 43% of the minimum standards had been met on the average in 6,000 assessed schools, and that this finding highlighted the challenges required or we face in ensuring the safety of school infrastructure and even the safety of students and teachers. Then they went on to stress the fact that Nigeria needs to do a lot more to ensure that education goes around the country. Now, they highlighted the fact that the girl child in northern Nigeria is particularly affected because when you look at the activities of the terrorist groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP that are firmly against any sort of education for the girl child, they stress that education remains the only way to ensure gender equality, economic growth, and social development, and they need to ensure that this remains the case. Finally, they stress the fact that 1.3 million Nigerian children are currently affected since 2021, and they introduced or introduced Nigerians, especially people like me, to the Nigerian Learning Passport. Now, this is an online digital platform that affords Nigerians who have been displaced by conflicts to online curricula and reading materials to ensure that they're not left behind as their mates continue their educational journey. What does all of this mean for Nigeria? Short term, mid term, long term. Governments at all levels, from national to subnational, even to local governments, have to continue to put heads together with the security agencies, with donor agencies like UNICEF, to ensure that the access of children to education is not hindered or restricted, and that in a lot of cases they're able to provide sufficient security. Because the truth of the matter is, no country can truly grow economically or socially without education. It's literally impossible to do. So, this is a clarion call for all governments to continue the work they've started and to ensure that the next 2 or 3 generations of Nigerians are properly educated to ensure that the whole country reaps the benefits of education.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. C. We're going to go on to the next headline, and this one comes from Punch. Nigerian youth ready to compete globally. Tinubu.
So President Tinubu had a meeting with the president of the MasterCard Foundation, which was basically an opportunity for them to intimate the president of their plans to provide 10 million jobs for youth across the country. They shared their vision with the president, which is already ongoing actually, as they've already trained about 2.1 million people on various digital skills, with an ongoing plan to train as many more as well. The president noted that this is in line with his renewed hope agenda for job creation, and encouraged them to continue to do more as well. This is quite insightful because, as we know, Nigeria has a large youth population. I think, as at the last estimates that we have, our youth population is about 65% of the total population of the country. So we can tell how significant that is. And we also know that access to jobs, employment, if we look at the last, well, not the last MBS Nigerian Bureau of Statistics report, but the previous one, which calculated unemployment the way it had always done that before they changed the formula, noted that our unemployment rates were already hitting about 30 point something percent, which I'd say is probably even conservative. So the emphasis on training people to become self-employed is very important. Also noting the fact that Mastercard Foundation focuses on digital skills because their approach is to enable people to be able to empower themselves, and then create jobs for themselves and for others as well. They also noted that their focus is on education and financial inclusion, so they're trying to improve their impact in those areas. These are also quite commendable. But one other thing I'd really just like to point out is, from the side of the government, it's helpful that we have partners, international partners like this, who also try and support the work that the government is doing. But in many cases, we still need, the basic infrastructure from government to be able to encourage some other things. So digital skills are very relevant in this century, but digital skills will not solve everything. There's still things like, even as little as light manufacturing, for example. Power is very, very important. And one of the things that will enable speed growth of employment opportunities is if we can sort out our power. One thing I've always believed greatly is, as much as possible, if we have predictable power, as we work towards uninterrupted power, the people themselves will be able to generate the jobs that the government is trying to generate. Because Nigerians generally are very resourceful people. We're very resilient as well. We try to make, lemonade from limes. Whatever problems that are thrown at us, we try to make the best of it. So if we have as little as power, sorted out, or sorted out actively, let me put it that way, would be able to speed up the impact of the creation of these jobs that we so desire and speak about all the time.
All right, thank you, Gbubemi, for that. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. And you can catch the live stream and post a comment on there as well. It's up on YouTube, Smooth 981. We're moving on to the next headline. Coming to you, Mr. C. Governor of the Central Bank, Yemi Cardoso, says the inflationary pressures are expected to decline in 2024 due to the inflation targeting policy, which aims to rein inflation to about 21.4%.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. Governor Cardoso was speaking at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group meeting, where he delivered his thoughts on the economic transformation roadmap, medium-term policy priorities. And one of the highlights of his speech was his declaration, or his prediction, that there will be a lowered inflation rate in 2024, and that we will see a much more stable naira in 2024. Now, we must remember, inflation in Nigeria closed out last year at a record high of 28.92%. Now, Governor Cardoso is targeting inflation to drop to 21.4%. This is very optimistic, sounds promising on paper. Now, how did he say he would achieve this? He said this will be done by the use of monetary policy instruments, increased collaboration with fiscal authorities to achieve price stability, and ensuring that the right market confidence was postured and presented, which would positively influence consumer behavior. He's also looking at improved agricultural productivity amidst the easing of global supply chain pressures. Now, this is fantastic. All this is brilliant. But beyond this, right? How do we transform these thoughts, these intentions into realities? Now, he spoke about increasing or improving agricultural productivity. There are a number of reasons why agricultural productivity is not where it should be. It's not at its optimal levels. And one key thing you cannot take away from that is security. The prevalent insecurity, predominantly in the places where farming or agricultural activities are taking place, cannot be ruled out. And in his speech at the NESG, he made no mention of any collaboration with security agencies. If you do not do that, you're not going to improve it substantially. You also have the question of bad roads between the farmlands and where the products will be sold, the town centers or the cities where the products will be sold. He also needs to collaborate with state governors to ensure that there's a proper road network that is motorable at the very least to take these things. Now, he wants to decrease inflation. For inflation to go down, productivity has to ramp up substantially. And just like Gbubemi was saying in the previous story, a huge part of that is power related. Another part is the fact that where we lack the expertise and the funding, the foreign bodies that have it are leaving the country because they cannot get their forex out. Now, he did make commitments and he informed the audience that the backlog of forex commitments were being tackled with a view to ensuring that that was dealt with. And then he also promised that forex supply would improve. Now, how would forex supply improve? Nigeria sadly still remains heavily reliant, heavily dependent on the sale of crude oil. Now, production has started to go up again because they've managed to instill some sort of calm into that sector. However, you cannot we cannot conclusively say that the widespread theft that has been going on in that space for the last 24 months has completely eased out or completely stopped until we're able to get back to a position where one, we're meeting our OPEC production quota, two, we're ensuring that foreign investors who have brought in money into Nigeria can easily take it out. We will still come back and continue to discuss about the inadequacy of foreign exchange or the unavailability of foreign exchange supply in Nigeria. So these are things Governor Cardoso has to think about, has to continue to put on his thinking cap ahead of the year. And it's a good thing that the first MPC meeting for 2024 is holding next month. We must remember that he came into office in September, and for a very strange set of circumstances, there hasn't been an MPC meeting. Now, at the MPC meeting, he's supposed to the central bank will give some sort of indication to foreign investors and even the local chaps in the country as to the direction of the central bank for the year. Now, it is expected or it is projected that interest rates will be raised by as much as 300 basis points or even 500 basis points. Now, that will have its own impact on lending within the country and even the ability to drive and sustain growth within our economy. So, fingers crossed, he has good ideas, and let's watch and see whether these good ideas can be transformed into tangible realities that the average Nigerian can benefit from.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. C. I've got a message coming through from Tunji. Tunji says Cardoso is just giving sound bites. Monetary policy cannot reduce inflation because it's not the cause of the high inflation. The actual cause is outside his control. And you're still listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Stay with us. The conversation continues shortly.
Hello everyone, this is your favorite Nigerian soul singer.
You can't win. You can't win. If you blast them, you say you're too hard. If you praise them, you say you don't do too hard.
What's that thing? Permanent bias.
Don't touch that dial.
It's freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. The analysts are in Gbubemi and Mr. C. WhatsApp number to get your thoughts across 0809 444 981. And the next headline comes from The Nation. Experts urge government to secure long-term foreign loans to stabilize the naira.
Okay, so I read in a report yesterday that our debt servicing impacts about I think 50% of our revenue, or much higher. Foreign debt servicing, sorry, foreign debt. Um, I believe it's actually higher, but that's what I read yesterday. So sometimes when I hear people clamor for us to take additional debts, I really wonder what the thinking behind it is. Well, I'm not a finance person, so I can't speak technically to that. But on the face value of it, I would say, that taking additional debt to address debt is not necessarily a solution. It's probably a quick win, a short-term solution. One of the things that I think about fundamentally is, and sort of piggybacking off what Mr. C had said in the previous story, is oil is our major revenue earner. It has been for so long. We've spoken about how government needs to diversify and earn a lot more from other sources. But it seems as if it always ends up as speech, because so far we haven't had anything that has even as much as gone about 20%, to compare with the revenue that we get from oil. So primarily what I think is that government should also be focusing seriously on how to increase our foreign exchange revenue potential away from oil. As much as the oil sector can be optimized, if our oil production is improved and all of that, we're still limited by the fact, that whatever changes occur in that sector will impact upon our foreign exchange earnings. So this comment about taking loans, was sort of alluded to the founder of an asset management company, who said, he cited all the debt that the country owes, so FX forwards, money owed to the airlines and a lot of all of that. And he said, in his opinion, that we should take a foreign debt with prepayments of not max more than 5 years to be able to address that. So my thinking is, yes, we take that foreign loan, if it's available, and then we settle all of these things. But then we still have extra debt to pay. So what is the plan to pay for that extra debt? So, like I said earlier, this is just a short-term solution. We need to focus on a lot more of that. The president of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators also alluded to the fact that the 2.2 billion naira that was received from AfriExim is insufficient to be able to address the demands that are on the I&E window. And he said that, daily there are about 150 to 250 million naira worth of demand on the I&E window. One of the other things that comes to my mind is, what exactly are people demanding to import? That's one thing I think we need to look at as well. Where is our foreign exchange going? What are we paying for? So aside from oil, what else, what are our major expenses in FX? If it's luxury goods, government has spoken about some of these things all of many times. I think that we need to be able to pay some sort of tax or whatever to be able to discourage some of these imports. There are a lot of things that we can manufacture in Nigeria. We talk about it here all the time, but there are even situations here that impact upon that. For example, I spoke about how power impacts us, before. People complain about the fact that even as little as toothpick is imported. But if you look at it as a businessman, is it cheaper for you to make the toothpick here or to import the toothpick? So those are all of the things that we need to look at. In my opinion, taking a foreign loan is a quick win. It's a short-term solution. On the immediate, it might solve the problem, but it's just kicking, the ball further into the future. What we need to look at is how to increase our FX earnings.
Okay, so very quickly, yeah, to put it very simply for the benefit of our listeners out there, we're not earning enough. So a man who earns, say, 100 naira a month, but has a lifestyle that requires funding of 500 naira every month. Yeah, short term he can deceive himself and take loans. For how long will that be sustainable? For how long will that be feasible? If you have a 500 naira lifestyle and your current income is 100 now, there's only one sure way to solve the problem: increase your earnings. And we have to figure out, politicians at national and subnational level have to put on their thinking caps and figure out how we're going to do it. This talk about borrowing is lazy, and it's short term in outlook, and long term we will all suffer for it. We cannot run away from the hard work. There's very little productivity going on, and it cannot remain this way if you want to grow.
All right, thanks, Mr. C. Let's go on to the messages. Dakbo says Cardoso is doing great, but all this monetary calculations and skepticism isn't going to solve the inflation dilemma. It's so glaringly obvious that the consumption to production is the best solution. Gilbert says, like what Mr. C said on increasing agricultural outputs in Nigeria, we need a master plan and collaboration with relevant security operatives to ensure farmers are secure in their farmlands. Security is key in all sectors of the economy. We're moving on to the next headline. This one comes from Punch. Federal government moves to boost local production of syringes.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So there was a meeting yesterday, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, between the federal government and representatives of six medical manufacturing firms in country. And the outcome of that meeting was the announcement of certain decisions to improve and help these local medical manufacturers, especially in the light of the exit of a number of foreign medical manufacturing companies. Now, for now, we seem to be focusing on local production of syringes and needles. There is a particular firm in Akwa Ibom that recently sort of paused operations because of the poor business environment. And the federal government is looking at ways to stimulate growth in the medical manufacturing space, and also to ensure that those who remain don't go, and also to encourage those who have gone to reconsider their decision and return in country. Now, this is all brilliant, and they've referred to quick wins, they refer to things that can be done. A number of things must be remembered, a number of things must be considered. Again, we go to this enduring issue of power. Then we go to the unstable policy regulatory landscape, where regulations, where the law seems to change, seems to be very fluid. Then you have the issue of multiple taxation, both at national and subnational levels. Yes, it's clear that personal income tax and common income tax should be paid. However, there are all sorts of other levies that are introduced, especially at subnational levels, which are not very clear. And then they differ from state to state. So it's very interesting that the government is committed to doing this, and they've also spoken to the existence of a backward integration program with incentives that are believed to be enticing, which will stop the exit of foreign manufacturing companies. However, this backward integration program still goes back to agriculture in some cases, and also the question of insecurity. So until all these issues are tackled centrally and collectively, we'll still be discussing issues on paper. But I've been accused of not being optimistic. So yes, the government has announced a plan. Time will tell whether these plans will be successful or not. But on paper, they sound okay. The problem has never been the designing of the policies, it's always been about the execution. So let's see if these proposed policies will be executed properly.
Thank you, Mr. C. Let's move on to this headline from Vanguard. Nigeria is working towards achieving epidemic control for HIV. Gbubemi?
Okay, so HIV epidemic control is achieved when the total number of new HIV infections falls below the total number of deaths from all causes among people living with HIV. Now, according to the Deputy Director, the Head of Treatment Care and Support Program of the National HIV/AIDS Viral Hepatitis and STIs Control Program, Dr. Peter Wanokenea, he said that the government has been working assiduously to ensure, that HIV prevalence is reduced. He cited some of the things that they have done as increased antiretroviral care, focusing on publicity to be able to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS, and also work that they've done on maternal care, to limit or reduce the impact of transmission from mother to child as well. One of the things about HIV that I've realized in this country is that there's still a lot of stigma about it. That is also one of the things that probably impacts on the prevalence. We see, let me say, a country like South Africa, for example, a lot of times I see some of their communication about HIV/AIDS. You find a lot more people coming out to say yes, they're HIV positive, but they are, on antiretrovirals, on drugs or whatever. So the stigma is much less there. But here, you'd rarely find someone admit, that they have HIV/AIDS. And that's one of the things that impacts on transmission, because there are people, for example, who transmit it to other people through, sexual encounters, not telling their partners that they have these things. Whereas if they were on antiretroviral drugs, there are ways that they can manage these things and still, have those interactions with other people with full disclosure, of course. So one of the things that is critical about impacting on the prevalence of HIV/AIDS is really publicity and awareness. The government can try as much as they can, but they also need to work with the media, for example, to be able to raise awareness about the fact that there are free drugs, for example, in government hospitals, for HIV patients as well, that there are support programs as well for people living with HIV, that there are facilities available to cater for people with HIV/AIDS as well. There also needs to be a greater level of awareness about practicing safe sex, and all of the tools that can be used to be able to limit transition during those encounters as well. So, and also for mothers, nursing mothers as well, and pregnant women, there's also the need for them to be able to, when they find out, that they're HIV positive as well, to be able to disclose this to their healthcare providers, so that appropriate care can be provided for them at those times. The government has also, or is also, working with a lot of other NGOs as well to be able to improve its actions and services regarding HIV/AIDS care across the country. And it's noted that strengthening healthcare infrastructure, increasing awareness, and fostering collaboration between governments, NGOs, and pharmaceutical companies are essential in closing the gap in HIV/AIDS care.
All right, thank you for that, Gbubemi. And let's go on to some of the messages that we have coming through. Peter says, how can a country use a massive part of her revenue to service debt? This political rascality must stop. Previous administration took loans of trillions with nothing to show for it. How much has the current administration saved us as a nation? Dan Okuda says the CBN governor should up his game. His actions and inactions are not giving Nigerians hope that the economy will get better. Yinka says, good point, Gbubemi. What exactly are those things demanding for FX? I think there lies the first step to solving the problem. Is it petroleum products? Let's give ourselves a timeline until all the refineries are at full capacity. Is it education or health? We shouldn't be funding everything, and we should be deliberate about it. Is it Japa? Also, we need to put the BDCs and banks under serious surveillance, because I have no idea how the naira is trading for 1,300 naira to a dollar at the parallel market. Who are the folks demanding these things? Tajuddin says, Mr. C, actions and not optimism make things happen. Aisha says, if our government focuses on a two-point agenda, electricity and rail transportation, there will be a ripple effect to all other sectors. Yinka says we shouldn't dwell too much on foreign companies leaving the country, especially if there are alternatives available to us. Some of these companies couldn't find a way to cut costs, hence they exit. The diaper market is a good example. Another is the detergent sector. Companies must learn to adjust to consumer buying power and also understand that there will be competitors. So don't scare us. These companies, if you want to go, please go. And yes, Emeka, that's the last message we're going to take, says, while concentrating on syringes production instead of giving attention to the whole pharmaceutical drugs that are out of reach since the exit of certain pharmaceutical companies. Some of these medications are no longer affordable. Well, that is it for Freshly Priced this morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your messages. And of course, special thanks to our analysts, Gbubemi and Mr. C, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
The headline.
Thank you.
You're welcome.